What is the moulinet and why do we do them? Hi folks, Matt Easton here, Schola Gladiatoria. So here we're going to look at what is the moulinet, what does that mean, how do we do it, and 4 reasons why we do them. So first up, to keep this nice and concise, a moulinet is a rotation of the sword. It can be from the wrist, it can be from the elbow, or it could conceivably be with the entire arm, or all 3 of those joints. But fundamentally it is a rotation of the sword, and it is to give the sword force, speed, power, and enable it to cut. Now of course, generally speaking, this rotation becomes necessary because we haven't already brought the sword up into a position like this. This would be called open ward or guardia di alta, for example, in Bolognese fencing. And in this position, all we need to do is drop the sword down in order to cut. So if we're looking at longsword guards, for example, which might be up in posta di finestra, or down in boar's tooth, or middle iron door, or tail guard, or any of these guards, or vom tag, then all you need to do is to move the sword towards the target and through it. However, if we're practicing a style of swordsmanship, for example, certain sabre systems, or side sword systems, or rapier systems, where the weapon is already held forward, then rather than bringing the arm up, exposing the arm and exposing our entire body potentially to stop thrust, instead what we do is we keep the arm forward and we rotate the sword, which means that we keep the threat towards the opponent, we power a cut towards them without having to bring the weapon away from them. Now of course, in order to cut, rather than just to make contact like with modern sabre fencing where simply touching the opponent will be enough to score a point, in order to cut, the blade has to have velocity. It also has to be pointing in the right direction as well, so you have to hit with the edge, but it has to have velocity. And so this moulinet, which means little windmill in French, or molinello in Italian, same thing, moulin is windmill, so it means a circle, essentially a rotation. This is to give the blade enough force to cut without having to bring the whole arm away from the opponent. So therefore, most commonly this type of motion is seen in systems where the weapon is held point forward and with the arm extended. So generally speaking, it's mostly famous for 16th, 17th, 18th, 19th century sword systems. However, we do find the moulinet or molinello in earlier systems for other reasons, and there are 3 other good reasons why you might want to do this type of rotation. So one of these reasons might be that you might have started in something like guardia di alta or vom tag, posta di donna, whatever you want to call it. So we've started here and we've struck out and we've finished in a position which is essentially posta lunga or langort, okay, but from here our blade was stopped, or perhaps the opponent stepped back, and so therefore we want to double up with another blow but without bringing our arm all the way back to our body. So in this case, if we've thrown the weapon out here, okay, so if we've cut, then you might want to keep the weapon out and you are performing what is essentially a moulinet. So even if you start here or here or here, you might have cut here, and in that moment you want to double up the cut, and so you perform something that is essentially a moulinet. Right, another reason why you might want to do it is for defensive purposes. So sometimes wherever your sword starts doesn't really matter, okay? You might find that the opponent attacks you, and in that motion you make a defense and then immediately want to cut back at them. Now, many people I think wouldn't recognize this or acknowledge this as a moulinet, but it kind of is, okay? Do you disagree? Do you agree? So essentially, if you formed, say, a parry and prime and immediately come back, what you end up doing is a moulinet, okay? Parry here, cut back here. Parry here, cut back here. Okay, so these motions can be a defense immediately followed by an offense, and functionally they function pretty much the same as a moulinet. So the third reason is because you want to double up cuts. Now, theoretically, you could do this by swinging all the way through and coming back, okay, but that would be very slow and would massively expose your arm. So instead, rotating around the wrist can be a really good idea, and this can enable you to do 2 things, for example, and other things, but 2 of these things are, firstly, you can change direction mid-cut. So, say you start bringing a cut out here, but then you decide to come around here, or here, or here, or here, or here. Those are essentially moulinets, okay, because you're starting to come around here, and yeah, you're redirecting it, but you're coming around to a new target to hit a new place. This could be because the opponent has parried, and notice there you might cut, parry, cut back, cut, parry. These are essentially moulinet movements. So they're rotating around the wrist or wrist and elbow and coming to different targets, and indeed you can start to come here and then twist around to there, wherever you want to go, by essentially doing a moulinet around the wrist. Now, expanding on this, you can also deal with multiple opponents like this. And in fact, this continuous form of cutting, you could call it a continuous moulinet, is actually one of the earliest examples we find in the sources of something like a moulinet, which is where you're surrounded by opponents or dealing with multiple opponents or trying to occupy or guard a space. And whether it's done with a two-handed sword or a one-handed sword, essentially means that you're moving the thing continuously around while turning. And this is essentially a moulinet. Okay, so many people think of moulinets as something unique to the sabre, but it's absolutely not. There's tons of them in side sword, and we even find it in earlier 15th century sources as well. So the moulinet is simply a rotation of the sword, often around the wrist, although it can also be around the elbow as well. It can be used to cut with weapons which are already extended forwards and you need to generate power, but can also be used for a bunch of other reasons as well. So I hope this has been interesting and useful. Get practicing your moulinets now. They'll only make your grip strength and forearm strength and even deltoids stronger, and more able to give multiple cuts quickly and defend and attack back as quickly as possible. Thanks a lot for watching. Please click like, and I hope I'll see you back on the channel soon. Cheers folks. Thanks for watching. We've got extra videos on Patreon. Please give our Facebook a like and subscribe if you haven't already. Cheers folks.